Hi, this is Mike 1013 for FlopTurnRiver. Today I want to talk a little bit about bet sizing. Now, there are a lot of different situations you can face in poker where you're going to be considering different factors when sizing your bets and raises, but I think there are some general rules of thumb that work in most situations, and that'll help you get a good handle on what you're supposed to be thinking about when sizing your bets and raises. First of all, you shouldn't change the size of your bets depending on the strength of your hand, except against the worst fish. Any competent opponent will quickly learn to realize what your different bet sizes mean, so varying them with the strength of your hand is not a good idea in general. You can vary the size of your bets depending on board texture. On wet boards where there's a lot of draws possible, you should bet larger than normal, and conversely on dry boards where there's not much your opponent could have hit, you should bet smaller than normal. Another thing to consider is the size of the remaining stacks. In general, you want to bet an amount that allows your opponent to raise and to think he has fold equity. This will allow him to bluff you, and thus you'll gain more value from your made hands. Now, it may seem that this could backfire when you're bluffing yourself and then your opponent rebluffs you. However, in practice, the amount you gain from your value hands usually is much more than the amount you lose by encouraging your opponent to bluff. On a related note, when stacks are short, there's less incentive to bet large, because you can still get the money in most of the time by betting smaller. And when you're bluffing or when you don't want to play all in, you'll of course save money by making smaller bet sizes. This is why players at cap tables or in the late stages of tournaments where stacks are short often will make very small bets and raises, like a minimum pre-flop raise, or a c-bet less than half the size of the pot. It's because they don't need to bet as large to get all the money in when they want to, and those times that they're bluffing they save that much more the smaller they make their bet sizing. If you find yourself in a multi-weight pot, you want to make all your bets and raises a little bit larger than you would if you were against a single player. With many players in the hand, there's a large chance that your bet will be called, so you should reduce your bluffing range and bet larger for value to take advantage of this fact. Finally, if you find yourself in a pot against different types of opponents, and you think that the best bet size changes for each of them, you should choose the bet size that allows you to exploit the fish. There's much more value to be had from exploiting fish than by trying to get regs to make a mistake. Let's take a look at a few hands that illustrate these concepts. Okay, this first hand happens at a 50 NL table. There's one limper to us. We're in the big blind with pocket queens. So we raise, and the limper calls, and we flop middle set here. Now, let's look at the stack sizes. Our opponent only has $11 left, and there's already $5.75 in the middle. So this argues in favor of a small bet size, because our opponent doesn't have much behind. If we bet too large, we might restrict his range to only very good hands, top pair or better, let's say. If we bet small, let's say $2.25, he may think he has fold equity and come over the top. Now notice, even though we're betting small, around $2, if our opponent calls, we can easily get the rest of his stack on the turn and on the river. So there's no reason here to make a large bet. I'd go ahead and bet between 2 and $2.25 here. Okay, let's take a look at another hand. In this hand we have sixes in the big blind. There's a raise in front of us and a call. Everyone else folds, and it's on us. We make the call pre-flop, and we see a flop of 9-6-5. So again we have middle set in this hand, and again, just like in the previous hand, we have an opponent who's kind of short stacked. And in this case he looks like a reg. He's an 11-9. He's kind of a nitty reg. Now, the difference between this example and the previous one is that there's a third player in this hand, and he looks like a fish. He's a 50-21. He doesn't look like a good player at all. I think This fishy looking guy, Cowboy 12, should be our main target in this hand, and we shouldn't worry so much about trying to trick or convince the reg to put money in the pot with us. We should instead just bet for value here against the fish. So in this case, I'd bet a healthy fraction of the pot, at least 375 and maybe even 4. And we'll expect to get looked up by the fish and get enough value from him such that we aren't worried about what the reg's really going to do. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to always consider your opponent, their stack sizes, their tendencies, and the board texture when trying to come up with a good bet size. See you guys later.